Set for the JV race back here on the banks of the Charles River between the Harvard lightweight men, the Navy lightweight men, and the Delaware lightweight men. And Navy has taken the first three races today, 5V, 4V, and just recently took the third varsity in a 3-second lead over Harvard. So Navy has already locked up the points cup. They won the most races. They'll at minimum win 3 of the 5 races today. The Haynes Cup will still be on the line in the one varsity race. And if you're the Harvard 2V team, there may not be a cup on the line, but Eric Schultz, this is a matter of pride and to try and start turning the tide for the Crimson heading toward that 1V race.
Of course, and folks are going to be looking online at these results, and there's plenty at stake here against a very, very tough Navy team and a feisty Delaware crew.
Harvard 4th in the rankings, Navy is 5th, Delaware is 8th. The lineup for Harvard's 2V is Charlie Zhang as the coxswain, Andrew Stern is the stroke, Andrew Wilkins in seat 7, Chris Wales in seat 6, Matt Podolsek in seat 5. Next to him, it's Eric Dvorshkin, then Spencer Kaplan in seat 3, Chris Sikowski, and Rob Lowe is the bow for Harvard. Still looking to get alignment. The lineup for Delaware's 2V, the coxswain is Maggie Dolan, the stroke is Taylor Doe. Mark Coahaven is the seat 7 stroker for Delaware. In seat 6, Kyle McCaig. Brian Regan in seat number 5. Seat 4 belongs to Eduardo Freza. Seat 3, Nick Pereira. Seat 2, Connor Ehring. And seat 1, Will Morello for head coach Chuck Crawford. For Navy and head coach Sean Bagnall, their 2V lineup has Drew Bennett in the bow. Seat 2, Matt Walsh. Seat 3, Morgan Wheatstone. Seat 4, Brant McEwen. Seat 5, Ben Capernini. Seat 6, Ben Skinner. Seat 7, Pat Walter. The stroke is Clay Jackson, and the coxswain is Colin Harper. Navy has won the first 3 races today. The midshipmen are 3-1 on the season. Their only loss this year came to Yale. They're ranked 5th. Harvard ranked 4th.
You see Chris Wales in the middle of the Harvard boat there. Him and his brother Michael have won a lot of races for this Harvard lightweight crew over the last 8 years.
Away we go. Harvard in the middle in this matchup with Navy up top. Expect Delaware's in the middle and Harvard all the way at the top of your screen. Very close out of the chute. Looks like Navy again has built a slight lead in the first few strokes.
Yeah, nice start for Navy. It's really important for all these crews to get these first 20-25 strokes out of the way and then settle into their base rhythm, and that's where this race is going to be decided.
2-seat lead for the Naval Academy as we move to where you start thinking about a base rhythm. Navy 1, Harvard 2, Delaware 3. That's been the result in each of the first 3 races so far. Of course, these Naval Academy rowers, some will be on their way to the armed services just within a couple of months when they wrap up their graduation. A real balance at the Naval Academy of your school responsibilities, your athletic responsibilities, and of course your military training responsibilities as well. And we appreciate the service of these Navy student athletes and all the Navy alums who may be watching right now from out and about across the world.
Absolutely. As a former athlete, it's hard to understand exactly what these Navy guys go through every day with school and service and sports, and it's unbelievable.
Navy and Harvard all squared. It's perfectly even here through the opening 500 meters. Delaware is 6 seats behind. Harvard had a good response after Navy got off to the quick start over the first 100 meters or so.
Absolutely. I don't think this is going to be a race that's going to be decided in one move. This is going to be a heavyweight battle, or a lightweight battle, so to speak. But there's going to be some punches, some counter punches, and some haymakers for sure.
It's a heavyweight, lightweight battle, or a feather. Maybe it's a featherweight battle. Is that what we'll go with, to use a boxing term?
Well, I'm not sure all these guys are always 159 pounds. I'll tell you that. And these guys are definitely a little heavier than that.
Navy has a slight lead here by about a seat. This race, early on at least, has the feeling of what we saw in the 3V during the women's racing earlier today when Radcliffe and Yale had counter moves going back and forth, and then it ended up being less than a second win for Yale at the wire there.
Looks like really nice rhythm from the Harvard boat in the far lane. Expect them to, they're pushing out a little now, but expect them to continue to move through the bridge. I think it's going to be on Navy to make their response here and see if they can match this Harvard-based rhythm.
Harvard at the top of your picture, Navy at the bottom. Delaware has started to fall out of your picture a bit as both sides have now gotten some open water to Delaware. Looks like Harvard has moved back to where they're maybe a seat ahead of Navy, but it is as close as could be as we come to the 1,000-meter mark between these two teams. Under the bridge we go, neck and neck. Oh, that can't be more than a few inches separating these two crews at this point.
No, and these next 30 or 35 strokes are going to be huge in determining who can kind of establish dominance, take a couple of seats. Looks like Harvard is starting to do so.
Crimson have gone out a seat ahead. JV race between Harvard, Navy, and Delaware. And now Harvard has taken 2 seats on the midshipmen. Does Navy have the counterpunch this time?
Once these more experienced Harvard rowers kind of smell that they're starting to move a little bit, especially once we're past the bridge on the Charles River and coming up to MIT, that can be really tough to respond to as the visiting crew.
Unofficially, 3 minutes and 40 seconds have gone off the clock as Harvard and Navy come up toward the MIT boathouse. It's still only about a seat to maybe 2 seats for Harvard. It's very close as we enter the final quarter of this race.
Yeah, Navy's doing such a nice job to stay in this. You can see the rhythm being set in the front of that boat, but it looks like Harvard is still moving out just a little bit.
You know, there are some sports where you just say, yeah, the Naval Academy should be good at this sport, and I would say rowing would be one of them, as Navy's right there sitting about 2 strokes, 2 seats behind Harvard with 500 meters to go. Likely throw swimming into that category as well.
Absolutely.
Harvard's starting to stretch it out. Now about 4 or 5 seat lead ahead of Navy as they have built with each stroke here over the last couple hundred meters.
Yeah, there's some great power in this Harvard boat. You can, there's been word from the boathouse that there's some great erg scores in there, and you can see that power starting to come through and starting to pay off for them.
You mentioned the Harvard senior in this group, Chris Wales, part of an 8-year legacy of Wales rowing for the Crimson, and he has his group out in front now by 7 full seats as Harvard looks for its first win of the day to snap the 3-win streak for Navy. Well, one thing you'll know about the midshipmen is they will not go down quietly. Service Academy trait is that perseverance at the end, see if they have a move left in them with a couple hundred meters to go.
Yeah, and they're starting to walk back a little bit. You can tell they're raising it for the sprint, and you can tell Harvard's responded as well.
Still looks like 4 to 5 seats for Harvard. Going to be a good time for both of these crews. We're at about 5.5 minutes unofficially with probably only about 25, 30 seconds to go. Harvard still on top, Navy about 4 seats behind in second. Good race between these two crews, but it looks like for the first time today, the Crimson should cross the line first as we approach the flag. At second varsity, it's Harvard 1 in a time of 5:54 unofficially. Navy takes second just behind, and here comes Delaware for third. So Harvard wins by about 1.5 seconds. Navy second, Delaware third. They're a full 15 seconds behind in the second varsity race. An important win for Harvard with just the 1V still to come.
Absolutely. I think that's going to build a lot of confidence in the boathouse to have to be able to beat such a strong crew as this Navy second boat.
All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll have the 9 o'clock start between the Harvard lightweight men's first varsity boat, the Navy first varsity boat, and the Delaware first varsity boat. That's next on the Ivy League Digital Network.